and all that stuff, so like, way more than I do. He's like, don't go to something like that by yourself. Okay.
Yeah, my husband, there's just
I
something
don't put the scare.
so I had to like walk.
So it was really good.
Yeah, it's very good.
Did you meet nice people?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard.
Did you sing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fun.
And you went
Sure
with
did.
the fire and everything?
Yeah. Full moon.
Full what?
Full moon. It was a full moon.
Full moon, yeah. Cool.
And it's a farm. It's the only USDA certified non-violent dairy farm. So your milk and cheese comes from.
That's
cows
awesome.
They like off cows.
That's cool.
And they're cooked and stuff. It's all about.
And is it meat free?
Yeah.
Since they don't,
They're all
kill cows,
vegetarian.
right?
Yeah. But
So they don't kill their cows?
No.
Oh, it's a sin. I wish I knew you were going, because I really wanted to go. I'm sure we'll have another one.
So did you like the chanting, the bhakti?
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's like electrifying.
It's nice.
They
Yeah.
do it for 2 hours in the morning.
Mm.
It's crazy.
Straight?
Well, they did, the people that live there, because there's like
Hmm.
15 people that live there, and they're like the real devotees.
Yeah.
And there was a monk. I had a one-on-one with a monk,
Oh, cool.
a Krishna monk.
Oh, Krishna monk.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, Krishna monk. I thought you said Christian.
That's what they believe in, Krishna. I said,
Wow.
I was thinking, I can't, Mark, you're like my foundation though. You make sense at all times to me. I'm not always actually, but like, you know what I mean.
As close as anybody's gonna make sense.
That's cool.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They give you a
Way to take the plunge and, I mean, because those things can be scary, especially never going to one.
No, he didn't. He
Who'd you
had
go
one.
with?
My son.
Oh, really?
I did know one lady, and while she taught a yoga class at that Mantra Lounge, and I knew her.
Oh, right, that was through that thing, right?
Right.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, the monk's speaking tomorrow night. Again, then he goes off to like
There?
New Zealand.
Was he talking at the,
He's talking about
Retreat center?
tomorrow. Yeah, he lives there when he's in North America.
oh, cool.
Where's he speaking of?
That Mantra Lounge on Gerard.
Oh, Mantra Lounge.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Fishtown, I think, right?
Interesting.
Neat.
It's awesome. Well, congrats. You made it through it.
I know.
You didn't come out creeped out.
Oh, slightly.
Was it hard
Yeah,
not
but
to
like, what?
She's talking
It
about
wasn't a
a
whole
bhakti
lot.
retreat. I don't know.
Not speaking,
You heard of the
right?
word
You could
bhakti
speak.
before.
The word.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
basically like
It wasn't
chanting
It
and
wasn't super
it's more of like a devotional type of yoga.
That was the yoga.
You know, where you use
We didn't do anything.
like Hare Krishna and stuff like that. You know, like those people that
Oh,
sing.
Central
And
was daily yoga.
a lot of the practices, from what I understand, a lot of the practices singing and just opening your heart through singing and
We were together.
kind of like prayer out loud.
Cool.
You know?
I did a lot of prepping.
So she went to a retreat that they did.
DCs and stuff.
What's that?
They like, they cook. Like we did a lot of like
Yeah.
prepping in the kitchen.
Yeah. Oh, you helped cook and stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Usually retreat places will have you do service,
You're right.
some form of
But
service.
the people that live there are like, that's their,
Yeah, their whole thing.
yeah, it's pretty.
That's cool. All right. Yeah, well, you want to meditate first?
Yeah.
Or-
Oh, yeah. So good. Happened in a couple days.
Are they gone or are they still here?
Roxy.
Oh, right.
One of the plants out there.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, I'm gonna try to shoot this as fast as I can.
You're fine. So up nice and tall. Draw the low belly in gently. Shoulders relaxed. Sometimes it's good just to lift your shoulders and then roll them once you're back and relax them. Relax your face, jaw, eyelids. So mouth is gently closed, teeth slightly separate, and tongue resting against the upper top teeth. Eyes are gently closed, no forcing your eyes shut. So try to relax the forehead, the eyelids. And then first just still the body. So that should be the foundation of the practice. As long as the body's moving, then the mind will never settle, because the mind's controlling the body. So still the body so that the mind can settle and still. And commit to the practice. So we're only here for 10 minutes or so. And just commit for the next 10, 15 minutes that you're not going to fidget, you're not going to move. And make that part of the practice, the discipline of stillness. So if an itch arises or the urge to want to shift or fidget, just try to watch it instead of reacting. And it'll pass just like a cloud. And then bring your awareness to your breath. Just loosely start to watch the breath. And try to get familiar with intensity of holding an object in meditation and what that is. When I say loosely, just like you're watching the breath, but it's not you're not holding it very tightly. There's just maybe a little room for it to wander, but it comes back. And then start to just intensify your hold on the object. So you just hold it tighter. And then bring the focus to the tip of the nose. And then watch the breath come and go out of the two nostrils. So mainly sensations, the air crossing the boundary of the nostrils, temperature of the skin changing with the breath, those hairs moving. Just find some sort of sensation to tie your mind to. And hold it strongly now. So it's kind of like the difference of driving in a rainstorm, like a really bad thunderstorm where you can only see 3 inches in front of you, 3 feet in front of you, compared to just driving on a nice sunny day and beautiful weather, and you're just kind of chilled and relaxed. In the rainstorm, you're much more attentive. Your focus is stronger on the road in front of you, just very mindful of any little thing that crosses into your lane or potential of a car stopping in front of you. A lot different as far as your focus. So let's move more towards that type of focus. So there's like tricks that you can do to try to keep the mind more interested in breath. And one of them is just try to notice the the gap in between the inhales and exhales. And try to see if you can just almost make that non-existent. So just the inhale flows right into the exhale, exhale flows right into the inhale. And let's do perfect 10. So try to get to count of 10 breaths without your mind wandering. If your mind wanders, then gently bring it back. And if you get to 10, start your count over. But make your goal more about catching the mind than about how high of a number count I can get. So try to be more alert, more aware of where the mind is, and just stay on top of it more. And as soon as you catch the mind starting to drift off or already drift off, a little moment take to rejoice in the mind, because that's important for meditation to progress. Is you have to rejoice in the small little victories, and that's a big one actually. The ability to be able to watch your mind and bring it back, and then start your count back over. So begin your count on exhale, inhale, second half of breath. Okay, and then let that go. Now we'll just work on one of the techniques for meditation, which is Tibetan. It's called Sheshing, which is this ability to be able to have like an alarm system in the mind that alerts you when your mind wanders. So now separate a part of your mind away from your main mind. So we kind of have two different minds going on. One mind is going to watch your mind thinking. So watching the thoughts. See if you can step back from your main mind. It's almost like you step out of your head and you're just being a witness, like a guard. I just want you to just take note of what your thoughts are mainly consisting of. Are they thoughts of the past? Are they thoughts of the future? Or are they thoughts of the present? So every time a new thought comes up, just note it. Is it present, past, future? And then come back to present moment, to your breath, and just wait for the next one to arise. Just keep noting, take tally. What is the weather of the mind like this evening? Are your thoughts of past, present, or future? Now, as you're watching, see if you can catch the process of a thought arising in the mind. So just try to just be a witness to what's going on. You just have thoughts popping up into the mind almost randomly. Feelings, images maybe. Mostly images, actually. And so the misperception we constantly live under is that we can control our minds in the present moment. Like, this is my mind, and of course I can control it. It's my mind. This is me. So just try to get in touch with how you typically feel about your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, and how that you're kind of the commander of this ship. Without analyzing, without thinking too much about it, just get behind the feeling that you typically have. Because this is the feeling that we have all day long, that we're in control of our minds, in control of our feelings, emotions, etc. Whether it's consciously or not. So we'll start to dig in and see if that's really the case. So now let's bring your mind to your breath again. And only thoughts of breath, only watching the breath for the next minute. No other thoughts allowed. So be the controller, be the driver that we feel like we are. And do not allow a single other thought to cross into the mind, just breath. And notice if it is possible. Is it possible just to keep my mind on breath by sheer will? So for the next 30 seconds, starting now. Okay, and so it probably didn't take very long to realize that other thoughts arise in the mind, and your mind drifts away from the breath. So it's proof that you can't control your mind in the present moment. You can't just wish yourself to be at peace. You can't just wish yourself to be happy. You can't just wish to have a good day, because it's not coming from your present control. If it was, you would never have a negative thought cross into your mind ever again. So by the time you hear your thoughts, they've already been spoken. See if you can get in touch with what that means. By the time I hear my thoughts in my mind, they're already spoken. And try to realize that you're just a listener. So trying to change how you're feeling in the present moment is as crazy as trying to change the words coming out of my mouth now. It almost seems like they're happening at the same time. You're listening to them or understanding them, and I'm speaking them, but they have to be going off a millisecond before you hear them. And to try to change them after you hear them would be crazy. And this is what makes us crazy, because we're trying to constantly change the thoughts in our mind after they've already been spoken. So we're just hearing echoes of our past behavior. This is karma in the mind. You're hearing mental karma ripening based on how you acted in the past few weeks, past month. If you were kind to others' minds, if you helped other people feel at peace, not stressed, then you'll be able to stay on the breath for longer. You'll be able to have more control over the mind. The mind will feel more at peace. If you're disturbing other people's minds, stressing other people out through your actions, whether mindfully or not, then your mind's going to feel a little bit more crazy, chaotic, all over the place maybe. And so first part of, this meditational wisdom is realizing that the way you think you're in control is not the way you are in control. We're not in control of the minds in the present moment. So whatever's happening in the mind at the present moment, the best thing you can do is just relax about it, because you can't. It's ripening. The seed's already sprouted. Karma's already ripening in the mind. You can't change the words coming out of my mouth. Too late. So the same in the mind. You can't change the thoughts after you hear them. It's too late. So what you can do is load different thoughts in the mind for the future through your behavior, through your ethics, how you're treating others. So your mind is a perfect reflection of how you've been taking care of other people's minds or not. Perfect reflection in the past few weeks. So the best thing you can do is reflect upon that when the mind is crazy, and then make a plan to how you're going to reapproach this week so you can have a better mind in the next few weeks. But trying to change it in the present is a crazy endeavor, and it will never work. There's a time gap. And so freedom comes from realizing that whether your mind's a crazy place to be or not, it's not coming from your present control or your present wishes. It's coming from your past actions, period. And until you realize that, your mind will be filled with crazy periods and calm periods, because we have a mix of taking care of other people's minds and stressing other people out. So maybe now just think about the past week or so, and just think about things that you do that maybe aren't leaving people's minds as calm and peaceful as you would like your mind to be left. Like, what are ways that you might be disturbing think of the mind, other people's minds as like a lake, like the surface of a lake, very still, calm. It's like a calm mind, a very storms going over top, the waves are choppy. So which ways are your actions leaving their lake all choppy? And just think about maybe habits that you're not even aware of, maybe. But just things that, maybe bother others. Whether that's your intention or not. And then see yourself this week doing those things differently, changing your behavior, just like rehearse. Maybe it's work tomorrow. Which ways can you move through the day and move slightly differently, being more mindful of how you're affecting the surface of the other minds around you. What are you going to do differently? And then think about in the past week or so the good things that you did to help other people feel more at peace. The times you went out of your way to just take care of other people's minds. And rejoice about them. Just feel good about doing those good things. So replay the situations. And just see how it made them feel a little bit more at peace, a little bit more content. They don't have to be huge things, just very small things. Small seeds create large trees. Small acorn creates a huge oak tree. Most importantly, just rejoice about it, be happy about it. And then come back to your breath. Take 3 breaths before you move. And after your third, come out, open your eyes, stretch. Okay, I lied, that was longer than that. Sorry. You all right? You all right?
What do you do? Like, I was all like, in a really good state, but then my foot literally is just dead.
It was like I would move.
And you gotta shut it up. Then I moved it, and then it was over. Like it was right at the end.
Yeah, just learn to let it go, to sleep and stay asleep.
It's like so heavy and like.
I know, it's
you
really
realize
weird.
It was
yeah.
dead. Like
Eventually it'll just,
like now
it's like you don't even have a leg anymore.
Yeah.
That happens to me like daily, so,
Okay.
and I still have my legs after 8 years. So.
They
Yeah,
work.
that's what
They
I
work,
asked
yeah.
that. I asked Mark that a couple of months ago, and it just you forget about it.
And Mary said it wasn't like a blood thing. She said it was like a nerve thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
So
not
you're
like
pinching
you're not
your-
locking your blood to your extremities and like you're gonna have gangrene or something because you,
Why would worry
like it's
about
not like
that?
a tourniquet or something. But
It just hurts when you come out of it.
oh, it's weird.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
just be careful after your session
You
to
don't get up.
not to jump.
Right.
Yesterday I was meditating up in my room, and my mom called me because I told her I was meditating not to bother me. And I'm like, "What's up?" She's like, "Looks like it's about to storm. Can you go close your windows in the car?" I'm like, "I've been meditating for 35 minutes. You're gonna have to go do it because
I
I'm not
can't
gonna
walk.
be up for
Uh-huh.
minutes."
Yeah. I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, it gets loud and then it'll shut up. In my experience, it's a little scary in the beginning. You're like, "Oh my god, I gotta move it."
I never did that completely that dead. Like it was so dead. And I think that it was like, oh.
Yeah, it's weird, and actually, it doesn't happen to me every day. It happened for a while, and then like now, I think it's just the subtlest. Like it must be like the subtlest little difference in your seat, from one day to the next. Like some days it'll do it, some days it won't. Maybe it's just because I'm like a half a millimeter sitting forward, and I'm just pinching the nerve or something. But like I said, some days it's crazy. Like right now, I can feel them perfectly. So maybe experiment with your seat. Maybe it's
Yeah.
like getting your butt a little higher, and then
Yeah.
you won't have to deal with it.
I've noticed the further I put my heels out by my knees, like under it, the less.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it'll be different for
Okay.
me because we're different. So
Yeah.
I'll have to just figure it
Yeah,
out.
you just experiment. And yoga helps too.
Yeah.
Stretching the hips especially. Do you have the same problem? Legs falling asleep?
No pain.
Pain in your legs?
Yeah,
Does that become an obstacle?
I work on it.
Yeah.
I have fibromyalgia, so I get pain all over.
Okay.
Like I just, something I always work on.
Yeah. So, does anybody have any questions about that meditation? Does that make sense? Does it make sense? Yeah. Does it contradict how you typically think what's going on here? It should. I mean, if you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, of course, I'm not in control of my thoughts, but we truly do think we're in control of our thoughts. Like we think we're the speaker. Even the words coming out of my mouth right now, I feel like I'm in charge of what I'm saying, right? Because there's like there's a mini me in here, like this mini me self, that's just like driving the ship, you know. But we're just the listeners, you know. We're just listening, and proof is that you would never choose to have a negative thought, and it's that easy, but it seems like it's easily missed. But you would never choose to have a negative thought or a bad day if you were the driver, you know, that'd be masochistic. So realizing that if you want to change the voice in your head, it's not going to come from just wishing it to be different or shutting it up or drugging it or whatever. You know, it has to come from. You're just playing back movies, so to speak. You know, you put the seeds in there in the past, you know, few weeks, and now you're just listening to what you planted. So relax about the present if that's something that stresses you out. Anxiety is typically based on the wanting to change, not liking what you're hearing in here and just wanting it to change. So for me, that was like my savior when I learned that, because that was very profound when I learned that, okay, there's nothing I can do about it right now. So just relax about it. Yeah.
It's like I have like 3 voices in my head, and then there's one that just finally realized, like, hey, you really are not in control.
Yeah.
And you are trying to find some sort of control in this moment, but there's nothing you can do because it's like outside of you, and you have to figure this out in order to change the outcome.
Yeah, well, it'll drive you crazy, and that's what anxiety comes from. For me, it was stressing about feeling stressed because I wanted to stop, and then I'd feel worse because I was forcing it, right? So you can't just, I mean, and you know, how long did I do that for? A long time, you know, and like never work. You know, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You know, sometimes we say, all right, just have a good day today, and you just happen to have a good day. But it's coming from you have different seeds ripening in the mind at that time. And then when those seeds wear out, you're gonna have the crappy seeds or etc. You know, so you got to, you know, this practice, you got to become like a gardener. So you got to like change. You got to be mindful about what you're doing, and then that's gonna recreate what's going in here, what you're gonna hear in the future. But realizing that there's a time gap between what you put in your mind and what is ripening in your mind, and just try to, in meditation, you know, try to realize that's a really, really good meditation, to realize that that you're not in control, because even when you come out of it, you feel like you're back in control. You know, there's some sort of part of your being that feels like you're the speaker, like there's some mini me in here. So you constantly got to like remind yourself and think about, especially when you start stressing about things or things aren't going your way and you try to force them to be different, that if you want things to be different, you got to change how you're acting. So the best thing you can do when those things are going crazy in here is change what you're doing now for the future. You know, just trust that in the future this thing will sound different. This little machine in here will be spitting up different thoughts. And I think that's really extremely profound. And that's like meditation on the emptiness of the mind, which is pretty advanced. You know, we talk about the pen and the irritating person, but even yourself, even the voice you hear in your mind is empty. You know, there is no controlling self the way we feel like there's a controller self. And that's also coming from past causes. And then until we get that, we're just constantly going to be struggling with ups and downs and lefts and rights. So,
I would say last month I've been real frustrated.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what I've been experiencing. Like I'm going to change things and I'm going to change, but I've had so much interaction with the family, and so much has happened, and everything's been a reaction. And as soon as it comes out, it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're almost like the.
She feels you over
I know
here.
you're
yeah,
I
it's
know.
like it's too late. So now, but at first like I said, I was really, really frustrated because it's like, okay, I reacted. I snapped. I did. But then I said, well, you realized it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
you
awesome.
see it. So now, now it's like, okay, so now I'm gonna try to be mindful.
Yeah.
Because that's the hardest thing, interaction.
So that's like
interaction.
it's like walking into a war and not having a weapon or not being trained, right? So the training for that war in life is meditation. Meditation gives you the ability to really what meditation should do for your life is give you the ability to be able to be aware of what you're doing, because that's the whole game. Just if you're not aware of what you're doing, then you're just kind of constantly going to be throwing shit on the ground, planting shit in the mind. So being aware is going to come from that skill that comes through building, your meditation practice, mindfulness. And then, as the person saying something that's, kind of starting to press your buttons, the voice inside your mind goes, oh, well, what are those things? Like you have this army kind of built up, this kind of defense system.
Well, it's like you have to react. You have to.
Yeah, you have to react, but if you understand,
changing, instead of just putting them down and getting angry,
Yeah.
it's like I caught myself, and then it was try to change the words at that moment, and just I actually became let's breathe and try. But you have to do it in seconds because you have to get a message across. Still,
yeah, right.
at the moment.
Yeah,
but
Buddhist practice should not be about just being a lump on a log and
no.
people say shit to you and you're just like, that's what this is. Yeah, you react, but if you understand that if I react in a negative way, that somehow says something unkind to this person, or
It just goes so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're
Right.
interacting with people, it just goes so fast. And I guess, that's when I realized that you laugh. It came out like it's just, you don't have time. There is no, it is present. There's no time.
Yeah.
And then, but what I guess finally I realized, and you just reiterated tonight, is I caught it.
Yeah.
Like instead of just letting it all go and catching it at night when I do my meditation, I'm actually catching it at the moment.
While it's happening, right?
Yeah,
That's
I'm actually
coming.
Start thinking
to catch it
after
more and more, and that fun. But that took the anxiety away, because I'm telling you, when it first, because the more I do this, it's just like the more I guess I'm thinking, or I'm feeling, or I'm just like, it's
It's an awareness, you're more aware.
yes. And at first I was really aggravated. I was downing myself, feeling like there was something it makes you feel like a really bad person. I'm like, oh my gosh, all these things I'm saying and I'm thinking I'm doing. But then I said, you're thinking, you're realizing. So we are we're doing, so it
on
was
the right
finally
path,
okay,
right.
we're doing, that's when I think I finally had a woosah moment. Like, it's like, okay. But I can't believe how much this meditation is actually, I need those moments. I mean, I really feel.
Well, that's a sign that you're doing your practice too, because if you are becoming more aware, then that's not just happening randomly.
No.
It's not just coming from wishing to be.
No,
It's
but
coming from
hard
practice.
work.
No, it's really hard work.
Sometimes I don't want to. I just want to spell. I'm like, I don't want to. I don't want to. I have little arguments with myself because I don't want to.
Every day.
Every day.
Yes.
It's like I'm over this.
Yeah, and for me, it's half the time it's not people pissing me off or anybody. It's what's in my
My
own
own
head.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Like
drive
nobody's
myself
doing it
nuts.
between them. Everybody's.
But I feel like with my own
It's all
stuff, I can work on that. That's me. I can work on that. It's that interaction that I just have so much trouble with. It's
It's hard. I mean, it is the whole practice. If changing this thing in here to becoming a mind that's totally at peace, content, happy, blissed out, if that's completely contingent upon your actions always are going to involve somebody else for the most part. They say you can plant most of 99.9% of karmas are created with other people. You can create karma with yourself, right? By like not taking care of your own body, etc. Those awarenesses of those kind of things will create karma too. But 99% of karmas that you create are going to involve somebody else. So that's the whole practice, is learning how to interact with people in a wise way that realizes that you're not separate from them in the sense that, that my actions do not influence how I feel, etc. That in essence, those people that you're interacting with are you, right? Because if every unkind word you say to them is going to just echo in your mind in the future,
Come right back.
then it's just you're saying unkind things to yourself, right?
It made
Logically.
me realize how much growing I need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to sit there like, I
do the same thing.
saw a
This is
lot
10
of
years later for me,
childish, immature
Sure.
behaviors within myself.
And what they would say is you've
But
had
it's
lifetimes.
natural. That's what
It's
they
so
feel
funny
like.
that you're saying this. Like my mom has these same exact things. Like she holds on to guilt, and she's very childish at times, and she's mean to me and my sister when she doesn't need to be. And we literally just had this conversation with her, but it was in such a productive way that we were able to get through to her. I wish she was sitting right
Really?
here, listening. Because yesterday,
That's cool.
because years of stuff that we were able to say, and it not be like a blowout.
Right.
It was just like, Mom, you have some stuff. You need to work through it. We love you. We're not going anywhere. Like, we'll get through this. We're better than this. But you need to look inwards a little bit. And it has to do with her husband too. But
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It is.
Cool.
Nice.
My sister and I were double teamed her. My sister talked to her first, and then I talked to her. All just worked out. It was good. It worked out. Still sad.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. It's just so funny that you're saying that. It's exactly like what she needs to be doing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think it's
I'm
what
just
we
proud that
all
you're
need to be
doing
doing.
Yes.
Right?
I need to be doing,
Yeah.
My brother told me I whined too much today. You whine too much. I was like, you know what? You whine just as much as me. I'm just verbalizing my whining. You're just whining in your head.
There you go. And then
Kidding
you
yourself.
just recreate the causes to
Yeah,
hear somebody
yeah,
else
yeah.
criticize you in the future.
Yeah.
It's a
And I
terrible
thought that, and
cycle.
then I thought of that, and
Yeah.
I went, shit.
Yeah, right.
Because I say shit all day
It's the
long.
hardest thing to do.
It's like,
So when someone says something like that to you, it's just, why is that such the instinct? Like, why?
Yeah,
I know.
Why?
Like it's
Yeah.
like
It's
it's
habit.
like second nature.
second
Like,
nature. It just comes like,
Mhm.
"Gee, Jason is sweet." He's like, "This is," I'm like, "You always have something to say. Why? Like, why do you always say? When you say something to me, but I can't say anything, and I'm the one that's wrong. I mean, I'm just trying to make this relationship better. Just shut up." Shut up. However, that is my initial reaction. But since I'm more
Yeah.
mindful now, I cannot say that. I have to receive
Yeah.
what you're saying and say that you're not the enemy and you're coming from a positive place and you're trying to enhance their situation. And it's like, but I don't want to hear that, but you have to in order to change.
like Mark told you to sit there and smile.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, if that's the least you can do, if that's the best you can do, then that's probably best to do. Just sit there and smile. I mean, if you can't say something kind back. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. There's
Progress,
like
we'll
three
run away
steps.
then.
Yeah, 3 steps. One's run away.
Yeah.
If you can't shut up, the next one is like, you just shut your mouth. There's a war going off in here. You're saying every negative word in the world to this person, but you just shut this,
Shut the mouth.
because as soon as this comes out, these
It's not
words,
gonna stop.
they're going to go into that person's ears, and you're going to be aware of that situation, and that puts imprints into your mind to recreate more of that shit for yourself in the future.
What if it's in your head then? What do you?
That's work. I mean, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
You're still creating negative imprints in the mind because you're thinking it, which relies on ignorance of not understanding the situation and where it came from, and the fact that where the irritating person is coming from. The person that you're mad at, the person that you're irritated at, that you're cursing off, whether verbally or in your mind, how did they exist? It's the irritating
Is it
person
really
thing.
yourself?
Yeah,
You're
you're
really
seeing a
just
reflection.
yeah.
You're seeing a reflection of yourself in them. And they do exist as irritating, and we're not saying that they don't. There is an irritating person there for you, but how they exist is the thing that's different. They don't exist out there on their own, separate from you. They're empty. They're blank of existing as irritating from their own side. And if I want to perceive them as not irritating in the future, then I need to change what's in here. And the way that I change what's in here is that I change how I'm acting. By irritating them back, it just re-puts the imprints in my mind. Because out there's just some colors and shapes, making some sounds, moving, in some certain patterns, etc. Your mind's putting all that stuff together, and labeling that as irritating and
Totally not that. Yeah.
totally not.
Totally.
Right. So, but when you're irritated at them, the irritation comes from the belief that it is them. Right? That's the only.
I'm
Yeah, 'cause you
figuring
don't
out
wanna
it's
believe
me
that it's
though
you.
lately. So I'm like, shit, all right.
What's that?
I'm figuring out that it's me lately. I'm like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not, I'm not even mad at you.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
know. It's,
yeah.
Yeah.
This is a deep-rooted issue I have.
this is humankind.
Yeah.
This is not just you. This is
Right.
part of being born into this. According to Buddhism, it's part of being born into this realm. It's like we have this intrinsic ignorance in the sense that you don't understand how things work. You know, we don't see that the irritatingness of the irritating person is coming from me and not at me. We see it as coming at until you learn. And wisdom's the only thing that can stop
Right.
you, and the whole wisdom's the only thing that can stop the cycle. And this cycle is this thing that keeps you in this samsara, which is the cycle of suffering that you've been in since beginningless time. They say. Because you've always misperceived things. Because whenever someone irritated you in the past, you said something irritating. You've seen 5 more irritating people. You said 5 more irritating things to those 5 people, and then you had 15 more. You know, so it's like this terrible, terrible cycle. Maybe you had periods where someone said something unkind to you, and you're like feeling very zenned out in the past, and you didn't say anything unkind, so then you broke the cycle a little bit. You know, but only wisdom can stop you ultimately from, and basically it's just. You got to stop doing the negative shit and start doing the positive shit, which will change your world for you. You know, as long as you're putting the negative stuff into the cycle, you're just going to keep experiencing those patterns. But anybody with a mind that hasn't learned, or that's not, let's say, a realized being, you know, they're seeing things as self-existent, as being out there separate from. Even as, you know, I talk to you all, it seems like you all are separate from me. You know, how I see you all, the conversation we're having. You know, it's like this weird thing, you know, like that we're just intrinsically born to see things as separate from us, and that, like, you know, the way that I perceive the world has nothing to do with how the world actually is. You know, the world, or the way that I perceive the world is actually how the world is by itself. And then everybody should perceive the world the same way as I do, you know. But reality is that it's available. You know, this room is either a nice place to be or a terrible place to be, or a neutral place to be. There's 3 thoughts: negative, positive, or neutral. And we're typically going to have those feelings towards everything. You know, whether or not you like an experience or not, it's going to be dependent upon what's in here, how your mind's putting that situation together. So. The thing that points at then is that the object of your conflict, or whatever that is that you're struggling with, that thing is neutral. It's empty. It's available. But it's not to say that it's not irritating you in the present moment. Just the same way, if the negative thoughts are going off in your mind, it's not to say that they're not negative thoughts, you know, and you're not having anxiety or crap going off. It's happening. It's in the present moment. You can't change it. Someone's irritating you. It's happening. It's not. Buddhism doesn't say, that's a misunderstanding of Buddhism, that it's like somehow there's not an irritating person there. No, there's an irritating person there. But how they're there is the difference. They're not there because they're choosing to be there on their own self-existently. They're there because I have created causes in the past to experience an irritating person in my life.
And that's when you say to yourself, I need to change that, but this negative karmic seed just sprouted and
Yeah.
it's done.
You can't press a seed back in the ground.
Right.
You just got to let it burn up. You know, once your corn, you know, you put a corn seed in the ground, the corn grows, you get maybe 2 ears of corn and that's dead, you know. Corn, you know, another seed has to be planted and then corn, right? So when you put that corn seed in the ground, once it grows and produces its flower, then it's done. And then you can be happy that it's over with. As long as you didn't just take those corn kernels off of the one corn, there's about 600 kernels, and throw them back into the ground, you know, which is like reacting negatively to the negative people, you know, the irritating people we see. So if you can shut your mouth, and when somebody's irritating you, and maybe react kindly out of maybe compassion, at the most act out of compassion, because that person that's irritating is somewhat disturbed, right? Like, I mean, it doesn't feel nice to be irritating, you know, like when you're irritated and you're just going off and around to the people around you, it's not, you know in your mind it's not a pleasant place to be. You're not just totally happy and just like irritating everybody, you know? It's usually in your mind, it's a mess. So you understand what that's like, so you can have some sort of compassion towards the people that are suffering, that are being irritating to you. So that's kind of like bodhisattva attitude is, how can I have compassion towards
I
you?
like that approach. So even though the irritating person is coming from us and not at us, the person who we feel is irritating us may actually be irritated.
They
Because they're their own person
could-
and we can't control their.
They could very well be irritated. They could be perceiving themselves as irritated. They could be perceiving themselves as happy. And then you're just taking those things and putting them together in a different way, you know? But if you're perceiving an irritating person in your life, it's your job to remove them from, you know, to clean up your world. Only you can do that, you know, and you do that by your actions. And the best thing you can do is have a compassionate attitude towards them, because then you'll do the kindest thing, you know? If you just assume that they're irritating from their own side and they're seeing themselves as irritating, which we're always doing, then we're going to do something negative, which is just going to recreate more of the same crap. So if you let's just assume the opposite, that they are disturbed, but like I want to help them feel better, you know. And I know by me feeling the fire never helps anything, you know. So by having that attitude, you can do much more damage to your mental afflictions, which are the things that constantly are cycling this terrible samsaric pattern. Whew, I know. It's a lot of work. It's not easy.
Why is it so much work?
Because you've had lifetimes of, they say lifetimes, countless lifetimes of doing it this way, habits. It's like the first time you smoke a cigarette or the first time you steal something, it's not the easiest thing. The first time you steal something or the first time you lie to your parents or something, it's not very easy, you know what I mean? It's like first time you lie to a new boyfriend or girlfriend, or, you know, it's not easy. But like the second time it gets a little easier. Third time, by the 50th time, it's like you could do it with your eyes closed, you know, it's not a problem whatsoever. So it's just habit. So then stopping yourself is a whole different thing, you know. It's like stopping an addict, you know. No one's an addict the first time they try something, you know. Like that comes from patterning, habits. And that's part of karma is when you do an action, you create the habit for that action to be easier to do again. So as long as you're saying negative things, putting negative imprints in your mind by saying something unkind to somebody, part of that karmic seed that you plant creates the habit to do it again in the future. So you're really at a disadvantage. Like in this life, we're really at a disadvantage. And that's why it's so hard. And that's why we're surrounded by such craziness, because it takes a lot of mental intellect and intelligence and to even get at the root of like, you know, it's even possible to do something else. So you all are the brightest people in this area, right? You know, like it's like, seriously, like this stuff is not, you know, I've seen a lot of people come and go from teachings, not mine, other teachings, and even just seeing people over the years that I've like shared some of this stuff with, like some people just hear these things and they're like, oh, that's cool. And you know, nothing, it goes in one ear right out the other. It just takes a certain type of person, you know, and it's just a sign of your morality. You've all been very kind people. Otherwise you wouldn't be here talking about ideas that can change your life forever. You know, like that's what it comes down to have the potential to be able to change your life forever and ultimately to help all beings like remove their suffering forever. That just doesn't happen randomly. It just comes from being like Mother Teresa's, definitely in past lives. We've all practiced before in a past life. They would say we all have this karmic connection, which is kind of cool. But you know, and how close we are too, it's crazy to think about. But you know, if we've been countless time from beginningless time, it's hard, you can't even wrap your mind around that. It's been this cycle from countless time, and then they say we're just like an arrow shot from beginningless time, and now the arrow is just touching the target. You know, it's kind of where we are. We're so close, especially if you're like meditating on like emptiness and stuff.
And do you think like we're so close as a society, or like we're getting there? Like,
I mean,
either it's gonna happen or it's not.
Well, no, and particularly if you're sitting here right now and we're discussing and you're entertaining these ideas, you know.
Yeah.
As a
We're
society.
a lot closer than everybody out there.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm saying everyone out there needs to like, if we're the arrow, you know, can we help get it to the
Actually hit the
with
target.
society? 'Cause, like, it
Well,
needs to
so
be-
there's an interdependence too. The society that we see that's unenlightened, are they out there on their own? Yeah, I mean, there's also a connection between my mind and how I'm perceiving society. Whether society feels enlightened or not is part of me, you know? So if
we start to think society is enlightened and start to plant those seeds and realize like people can get this.
Yeah.
You can get it.
well, so the thing is as you change yourself, you'll start to see society becoming more enlightened. As you start to feel more awake and more enlightened, because the world's coming from us, not at us, right? It's that. So if we change us, then the world will start to change. So you start to see, like I've personally been seeing a lot more of these kind of things popping up, you know, like yoga studios
Yeah.
and Norwood.
There's a really cool
Yeah.
thing in Philly on the 30th. We should all go together.
Okay.
Yes, I just looked it up right before I got here.
Okay, cool.
It's called like the Wanderlust.
Oh, cool. They're doing one.
They're doing one in Philly.
Oh, that's cool.
And then they're doing one in West Virginia, like a retreat, June of 2018, which would be awesome too.
Nice.
So yeah, anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no,
you're
no.
right. They're like,
No, so yeah, you know, it's happening, but it's happening at the speed that you're allowing it to happen. It's not happening independent from us. So the more,
Well, isn't it kind of what is in Revelations that's saying about, you know, you go out and tell two people,
yeah,
and
right.
those people go out and tell two people, so
Right,
that's
right.
8 people, and then,
yeah.
you know, they talk about the 444,000 or something like that. So I kind of feel like it's like that, and I am seeing more of that.
Yeah.
You know, they just had yoga day.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, these ideas are getting out
My
there.
friend just said she's gonna be vegetarian.
They were all over
No, I think it was a couple, it was
That's
last week, National Yoga Day.
Okay.
I was actually watching it live on, live.
Yeah, I think it's happening.
Something happened
It's
yesterday.
happening.
happening.
Like, when you said that about the arrow, like that makes a lot of sense. I feel like it's either. It's
Well,
now.
since beginningless time, they've said, you know, like we've been in the worst case scenarios, and like this is the way we have it right now karmically is like best case scenario that we can have, to be able to have like a nice quiet place that we can talk about these ideas, freedom to practice whatever we want, think however we want, right? And just have these teachings available. It's just extremely, extremely good karma. But you know, the world that we perceive around us is not separate from us. You know, there's an interdependence between our minds and the world. So as we awaken ourselves, so basically a Buddha, when he looks around at the world, or she looks around at the world, they see a world full of enlightened beings. You know, they're only surrounded by enlightened beings. So that's the goal, to see because there's a connection, because the Buddha's mind's completely awakened, completely enlightened.
Is that why they say you are the sum of the people that are closest to you, in a sense? Because what you surround yourself with, you inadvertently become, or vice versa, I guess.
Well, your perception of the people around you it's like the irritating person thing.
Yeah.
If you see or pleasant, let's say you're surrounded by pleasant people, you know, just people that you just love. And like I just did like a job the other day with an old friend that I don't very see very often. But like it was like the most enjoyable, like whenever I'm working with it, it's like the most enjoyable time that I ever, that I have, like doing jobs. You know, we just like joke around. It's like a totally different experience, you know, and to think that, I've had, jobs that I've just been totally miserable and I can't stand the person I'm with, and, and trying to like realize that, okay, that's not happening on its own by itself. You know, the qualities that I'm seeing in that person are coming from me. You know, the qualities that you see in the people around you are coming from you. You know, they're out there, there's colors and shapes. You know, the eyeball cannot perceive happy, funny person, pleasant person, or it can't see a pain in the ass person. You know, the mind puts that stuff together and labels that stuff according to what the mind is, what's in the mind, right? You know, the eyeballs are just lenses to the world. You know, what's coloring it's like a coloring book. What's coloring it all in is the mind. So what you're seeing around you, what the people that you're experiencing around you, it's all coming from you. The colors that you're putting on the people around you are you, because they're coming from you. So it's a good practice to get in the habit to think that, okay, I'm seeing all the people around me as separate from me. Visually, we're separate from one another, right? You're sitting there, you're sitting there, you're sitting there, you're sitting there, and your butt's on a different cushion than mine, and you have your own water, but karmically, we are the same. You know, karmically, you are me. For me to understand these things karmically, I need to help you understand these things. for you to understand these things, you need to help other people understand these things, because karmically, that's the way for you to, because if you just want to understand emptiness and karma and be able to remove your suffering from your life, etc., is it coming from just wishing to like want to understand it? You know, some people hear it and these words mean nothing to. Some people hear it and it means everything to, you know? And that's coming from karma too, because they've helped other people understand things in the past. So get in the habit of like, you know, the people around you, the people in your family, you know, like you're not taking care of somebody else, you're taking care of yourself, you know? And there's a lot of yourselves around, right? That you're thick on the ground in a sense. And it's a cool way to start thinking that, you know, like try to get out of the habit of seeing them as separate. You know, visually they're separate. Yeah, of course, you know, they are there. You're here, you can have relationships with them, of course. But functionally, for me to get something, I need to give it to them. You know? For me to be happy, I got to help them feel happy. You know? Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck in the same patterns because, you know, you're doing kind things, put some kind seeds in your mind, you have that echo go off. So it's, I don't know, it's really, really cool to get in that habit of trying to, you know, when someone irritates you, just think, they're me, you know, like just flip seats with them really quick. Like, how would I want someone to react to me right now?
Yeah, now I think I need to hang out with my brother more.
I mean, hard to keep your mind on that, of course, you know, but through, you know, understanding, you know, wisdom and understanding these things, that's what that means, you know. In order for me to get a donut, I need to see you eat a donut. I need to give you a donut. I need to see the donut cross the border of your lips into your mouth, and then you enjoy a donut, right? And that puts a seed in my mind for me to have a donut in the future. So visually, you're separate. Yeah, of course, your mouth is over there, my mouth is here. But functionally, it's the same, you know. If I need to give you something for me to get something, then our language defies us in the sense where it creates a problem because it separates us. You and me, it's like a separate thing. You're there, me here. But when the world becomes enlightened, and a Buddha doesn't see things in terms of you and me, it's like you, me. Maybe it's like the word combines or something like that. Like you see everybody as yourself, you know, and there's no longer this separation. But our language is flawed in the sense that it creates that mental separation just by the, you know, words. You know, you is someone separate from me, you know, that kind of idea.
Is that kind of like the same thing with religion? Like in Christianity, they always are like, if you're a believer and if you feel that connection and you start to understand the foundations of religion and it does something that speaks to you, then you should encourage other people to not like convert them, but help them to become believers as well. And to kind of, the responsibility is on you to work to save them and to help to bring them kind of to the other side so that they can be more enlightened and can find more inner peace and be able to function in this crazy world, society.
Yeah. So like in Buddhism, you know, in Buddhism is a big thing about not proselytizing. Like, you know, like let's say Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, they go knock on your door and say, you know, we're not allowed to do that in Buddhist practice. And traditionally, you're supposed to be asked 3 times before you teach something. That's like the tradition, because the danger is that by you pushing these ideas down someone's throat, they don't want to hear them, that it'll turn them off from it, you know, because they don't want to hear it. You know, and personally, you know, maybe that's happened to me over the years with Christianity. I went to Catholic school my whole life and stuff, right? But I have a totally different respect for it now because it's all the same stuff. It's all the same teachings. They're teaching it's just, for me, it was missing the logic of like, you know, how that works, why that works, etc. So you're not supposed to proselytize, but you should share. If someone doesn't know enough to ask you about what you're learning, but you know they would be open to it, right? Then you should share it with them. But traditionally, you don't go around saying, "Hey, can I teach you about this emptiness thing?" And like, whether you want to listen to me or not, I'm going to teach it. You know, like, and I've done it. You know, and like, you know, it turned. You know, I did it when I first started learning this. Lauren, I was like, you know, just like, you got to hear everything I'm learning. You know, she don't want to hear it. You know, and I kind of turned, and then. But now it's funny. She uses it against me now in arguments. You know, and I have nowhere to go. So yeah, I mean, but there's a big thing. You know. Big thing about your mind and the belief element in Buddhism too. You know, like, you know, believing that there is some sort of higher power is is definitely a helpful thing. You know, like some people, they have like bhakti, for example.
I know, it's
Yeah.
like I'm thinking about it as you're talking.
Yeah, bhakti, for example, is devotional. They, you know, they don't necessarily need to hear like the logic and like all these teachings necessarily, but they just know that they open their heart, they'll just feel better and they'll be more open to like receiving this divine power type thing. As far as I know about bhakti, but I know this, it's the yoga devotion. You know, so it's just like this devotional, like
To
having
Krishna.
this, yeah, to
is
Krishna,
like the
right?
man.
So like in Christianity, yeah, it's like
God
Jesus or
or-
God,
yeah.
right? So
What's that called?
some people that works for, and some people it doesn't. For me, it personally doesn't. You
Yeah,
know,
'cause
like
I don't think
I'm more of a logic. I need to use my mind to know why I'm
So
doing
we have to
something.
And that's
understand
more
the connected
Buddhism?
dots.
That's like.
Buddhism
more-
is based on logic. You know, a good Buddhist is
And they
you
say
have
that
to.
Bhakti was the originator. Buddhism came out of Bhakti. That's
I don't know that to be
not
true
sure.
because the Buddhism came from Buddha, and Bhakti didn't necessarily come from Buddha. Although Krishna, I don't know where Krishna comes on that timeline.
I think before.
He probably is before.
But it's a story stuff.
Yeah.
So whatever resonates with you the most.
Yeah.
I feel like.
But that kind of devotion towards a being puts powerful seeds in the mind for
Right.
an awakening to happen in the mind. You know, like the more belief, like in Buddhism, is like having faith in like the Buddha. It's like a really like a reverence and respect towards those kind of beings is a really powerful thing because it puts imprints in your mind. You know, for you to realize, for you to be more open to teachings, etc. And you know, really, it comes down to it changes by being devotional towards like one being. Let's say like Krishna, or, you know, and Bhakti. You know, you're not going to go around just like after you're like, you know, doing your prayers and singing like about love and stuff. You're not going to go around treating other people like shit, probably, you know, for at least the next 10 minutes. If you're done, you know, maybe the next day. But, you know, if you're doing that, it's opening your heart and then you're going to be more inclined to be more kind to other people. And right. So, I mean, yeah, so there's, in this type of Buddhism, what we're going through is very heavy based on using your intellect and your mind. And the best Buddhist student is somebody that thinks and doesn't just take something from, you know, like the teacher, you know, like from what I'm telling you and just saying, okay, I believe you, you know, and not thinking about it. Like Buddhism doesn't want teachers like that, you know, I mean, students like that, like, because that breaks it down, you know, once things get tough, you know, you'll be like, I don't forget about that shit, you know, like, but, you know, if you thought about it and meditated on it over and over again, that's a different type of student, you know, that doesn't break down, you know. If you've meditated on emptiness and studied these things on your own and then when things get tough, you lean more on them because you realize that this is like foundation to like who I am at that point, you know. Nobody can tell me differently at this point in my life. That like if someone said, like let's just say I came to you all and said, you know, these teachings, I just made these all up, these are all like fake, you know. You know, maybe like I lose one or two of you, be like, I guess he was, and like I just said, forget about it. You know, maybe you would never think about it again. But I would assume because you're all thinking people here that you've thought about these things, and whether I said that or not, like something has already switched in you that, you know, realizes that there's some truth to these things, you know. And then no matter what anybody said to you, you can't just turn it off. You know? That's kind of like what it, you know, seeing direct perception, having direct perception of emptiness does to you. When you're done that, there's zero doubt forever. Like right now, when things get really difficult and people are really pushing your buttons, you know, doubt starts entering your mind a little bit. You're like, oh man, maybe it's better just to yell back at this person. You know, like I really would feel really good. But once you have the direct perception of emptiness, you've seen the truth of these teachings directly and without intellect. It's like beyond intellect. And at that point, you're just, everybody in the world can say these teachings are fake and we just made it, but you would know for sure that that's not the case.
How does Hinduism fit into all of this?
I don't know much about Hinduism, to be honest. But I know, I believe a lot of the teachings of Buddhism originated in India.
Right.
All right, so, I mean, I think it's very similar. They have different terms that I think talk about the same type of thing. I mean, they believe in karma, but they talk about like a creator. I studied a little bit in yoga, but I don't know it personally too well to talk on it. So I apologize.
No, it's fine.
I think it's very
still trying to
similar.
wrap my head around like Buddhism. I
Yeah.
love it, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know that, but I'm still trying to even like, you know, you asked what's the difference between the Hare Krishna,
Right.
Hinduism, Buddhism. I mean, it's all connected. There's just a little it's different way, but like what feels right for you, like the logic and what we talk about.
Right.
Like.
Well,
feels
yeah,
right.
Buddhism, stems from his, the Buddha's teachings after he became enlightened, which is not just a story, is direct lineage from that actually happening. Some person like you or I sat down, was suffering in the world of suffering, and wanted to get to the root of it, and then had direct perception emptiness in meditation and became enlightened, because he had bodhicitta in his heart. If you have direct perception emptiness with bodhicitta in your heart, that could be the thing that propels you into full enlightenment. So then he came out and started teaching, and then those teachings were passed down from teacher to student. And this specific lineage can be traced back to the Buddha, which is really freaking cool if you ask me. Like, it's not like somebody, just taught me these things last year that came up with these things, like his grandfather.
Wasn't the first guy who scribed it, like he was kind of like an a-hole, right?
I don't know.
Or he didn't, no, I feel like you told us that. Like he, yeah, well, no, like or maybe I did read it, but like something like the first person who was able to write, like at that time, and he, whatever.
I don't remember
He was
saying that.
writing it, but he wasn't
Tangent.
buying it.
Well, so I mean, we're like 43rd. You're like 43rd generation, I think, something like that. 42nd, 43rd generation,
Okay.
traced back to the first Dalai Lama, right?
Got it.
So our lineage, because my teacher's teacher had the same teacher as this present Dalai Lama, right? So like the same person that trained this Dalai Lama, that's the ruler of the Buddhism, the quote unquote religion in this world, my teacher's teacher taught, right? So that's pretty cool. So, and then, trace back to his teacher all the way back to the first Dalai Lama, which was Jitsam Kappa, which is this lineage is founded in. Jitsam Kappa is Jitsam Kappa lineage, Galupa sect of Tibetan Buddhism. And then trace back from him, I don't know all the exact things, but you can trace it back to the Buddha from him. And I think his dates are like, I want to say like 1457 to
The first.
first Dalai Lama, yeah.
1450.
So at least, what is that?
BC.
500, 600 years of these teachings directly traced back for sure. And then from that, from the first Dalai Lama to the Buddha, which is 25 or 500 BC. Was it? I forget the dates of the Buddha. I think it's so it's like an unbroken lineage, and it's your job to like teach these things. Like you shouldn't just stop here. Like you have a like in this tradition, once you hear teachings, you take a responsibility to share them. Like it's like what you're saying, it's like, you take what you learned and you share that with people, it has to spread that way. Otherwise it'll just stop and it'll be kind of like a whole, it's a heavy responsibility to get these teachings,
But your teacher, how long were you with him before you ever felt like you were at a place where you could be? I mean, you teach in small moments, in your interactions, but
Yeah.
for you to make that choice, like I'm going to lead a group of people.
I've been studying for like 10 years now. Yeah, but
When you
I
just started teaching?
no.
Right.
It was kind of like I first started doing like meditation classes, at the Y. And then I would teach a little bit like basically you just teach what you know. Like obviously you don't want to make shit up. You don't want to,
There's that,
yeah.
right?
But you're so natural in teaching this, and it's such a heavy,
yeah, but I mean, you already have enough understanding that you could teach, the people around you, because if you see it changing your life, and the more you practice and meditate on it, then the more it'll become integral to you. You're not really some of this stuff is difficult because you're talking about definitions and terms, but if you get the gist of it, the foundation of it, then you can, it's like all kind of breaks out of that, You get the main two teachings are karma and emptiness.
got it.
You learn those two, then you're a master of Buddhism, no matter what anybody tells you. Forget about all the terms and all these definitions of what a person is, if you have this experience, let's say you have this awakening experience and you never had a teaching before in your life, you would be therefore like theoretically a master of what the teachings are. And you understand emptiness now, the understanding the irritating person, understanding the pen, that is the heart of it. That's, some people never get to that, like they're just worried about, just being a kind person because someone told them to be a kind person, not because they necessarily understand how it works, how the mind works, etc. So that's they're the two. Wisdom and compassion is the two foundations of Buddhism. They're the two wings of the bird. Wisdom on one side is just teachings on emptiness, teachings on karma, and then compassion is like karma. Really, it's really karma. It's just being kind, and you can't get to the top without it. You can't just be a compassionate person without understanding wisdom and expect to really reach the highest goals. And you can't just be a wise person without being a compassionate person. You need both.
And it doesn't mean you can't have a personality still. Like you
No,
can't.
you should.
Right.
Buddhists have personality.
Like the monk, it was cool. Like everyone, it was weird when we interacted.
Yeah.
Because just the people I was with, maybe they were like, I don't know, intimidated or.
Yeah.
And then we were just like, I was joking with them because I felt like, oh, you're a person.
Yeah.
You're a person. I'm a human being.
Yeah.
Both of us, regardless. But.
I mean, even from a Buddhist perspective, you're not going to be any help to anybody if you're just a lump on a log.
Right.
Like no one's going to want to
Sure.
talk to you. You got to be relatable. You shouldn't be just. It's no good to just go hide yourself in a cabin somewhere.
Or like always be like.
Yeah.
like
Well, I mean, that works for some people. For me,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Right.
For me, it doesn't. And
Yeah.
I'm turned off by that type of thing. But, the point is not to become a lump on a log or just like a wet paper towel or something. You should have a personality, and the more you practice, the more personality you'll have.
Right.
It'll just be more of a personality based in ethics,
Yeah.
morality.
Yeah.
Which is a sweeter personality, I think. So, I don't want to keep you if you don't have to go. It's 7 after, but I'm happy to stay.
Easier to like when I first started working at the law firm that I worked at in Conshohocken, a couple months into it, there was a yoga studio that opened up, and I really went because I wanted, I was working out, nothing was changing. I'm going to try yoga. Madonna can do it. I can do it. All right.
Yeah.
I'm the Madonna arms, and I went and I was hooked. And people at work, I would go at lunchtime and they thought I was crazy, and you go work out at lunch, and and then I would tell people to come with me, and I would talk to people about it. And by the end of the time that I left the firm 7 years later, I had gotten a whole slew of people to go to the yoga studio and practice yoga and all of that. And I feel like that's somehow so much easier to get people on board with that than it is to get people on board with this.
It's like a gateway.
If I
It's
bring
a
it up to
gateway.
anybody, they're
it's
like,
the front door.
yeah, like my mom. It was easier trying to explain karma today to Nolan than it was to my dad. I mean,
No, it's like she said, it's a gateway. There's these practices that are all aimed at getting you at the same goal. It's just eventually yoga opens your heart up enough and your mind open enough to receive, to be able to understand teachings like this. Ultimately, yoga, that's what it's designed for, is to still the mind and to open your heart so you feel, which induces more wisdom in you. So in a sense, by doing yoga practice, right, and meditation practice, you will create more opportunities for yourself to have teachings, etc. To be more, because again, even the teachings, for example, are empty. The words that I'm saying, the words that you hear, these teachings that you hear me online, they don't have any power in and of themselves, and your mind is putting those things together, and that's going to come from your practice. And yoga is designed to. They kind of go hand in hand. So for me, that's what it started with, teaching yoga, and I started teaching meditation, and then I started that's how I met you. Teaching
Right.
yoga at the Y.
Right.
I wasn't teaching this stuff.
Right.
This is what I wanted to teach because this is where the practice. And it's funny, they always talk about the Buddha, when the Buddha was teaching, really what he wanted to teach was about emptiness. All the talks that but some students weren't ready for it, so he would teach lower teachings of just being kind, compassionate, right? Like these kind of teachings. Maybe a yoga class or
Quotes from
stuff
the
like
Buddhas
that.
we all have, the great, the nice quotes of the Buddha.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
What's that?
That's the love. Buddha quotes, the quotes
Okay,
from the
right,
Buddha.
right.
Just about kindness.
Right.
That's the lower.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's not lower in the sense it's not true.
Right.
It's just like a gateway, Ultimately, the Buddha wants to talk about emptiness, and because that's the thing that's going to really, that's the only thing that can cut your suffering, is understanding emptiness, and you have to understand the connection between how you're perceiving the world and how the world exists and how they're not separate. So, you know, but a lot of people aren't ready for it, you know, so you have to open them up with yoga. You have to open them up with meditation, and, you know, and then you can kind of get them hooked. You get them feeling a little bit better. And then you're like, oh yeah, well, how about this idea? Throw that in there, you know, so then I started doing like little classes at the YMCA, and, you know, just for the yoga or the meditation people, if they wanted to come and learn a little bit more, then I did that. I think, did you come to that scene? I think you were right there.
I came to your yoga classes.
Oh, yeah, and meditation too. You were there, right? Really? Oh, well, I mean, but basically, yeah, you at the core of it, you got to be practicing in order to teach. The best way to teach somebody is through your own practice. You know, otherwise you can say words, but it's not going to mean much if you see it or it's not working. If you're totally stressed out and you're teaching about meditation, there's like
Yeah, it's like getting skinny advice from a fat doctor.
Yeah, right.
You know,
Right. Yeah, or, you know, eating food from a skinny cook. You know, I would rather a fat Italian lady giving me a, you know. But yeah, so you know, and then that really has an effect on, it ripples out. You know, as you practice, then the world starts changing, and that's how it starts changing. Is people start listening, people start getting more interested, and it's not happening separate from you. That's the cool thing, you know. So realize the interdependence that's happening even when that's starting to change. You know, because we see, okay, oh well, it's cool. There's been, you know, 3 of my friends started to go to yoga. Is that just random, or does it have something to do with my practice? You know, like someone just said they're going to be vegetarian. You know, is it just they randomly decided to be vegetarian, or is it coming because, you know, I've been changing my you know, my actions, my world, and that's what starts to happen. It's really cool, and then one by one, the world starts to clean up around you until it becomes like a perfect place to live. You know, because it's coming from
You're
you.
perfect.
You're perfect, yeah, right. It's not someone else is perfect.
And you're surrounding yourself with more like beings.
Yeah, a Buddha doesn't see, a Buddha sees only enlightened beings. Because remember, the being is neutral. There's no irritating person from their own side, and there's no pleasant person from the other side. You know, if someone's perfected their mind perfectly, they see that being as totally perfect. But they might see that being as seeing themselves. So the caveat is that the Buddha sees the being, sees that being sees themselves as suffering, but they don't perceive them as suffering. So that being, because the Buddha knows all things, the Buddha can perceive somebody as perfect, enlightened being, right? That's how they perceive them, but they perceive their own mind as suffering.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there is no being separate from those two perceptions. There's the being that the Buddha sees, there's the being that the person sees, their own mind. And they might not perceive their mind as a perfect place yet, but the Buddha perceives them as perfect. And there's no contradiction there. And that's hard. Because it seems like
the
there's...
Buddha sees a drug addict. Like they could see the enlightened like qualities of that person. Obviously that person probably has it.
Well, maybe I would argue if they're a drug addict, then they wouldn't maybe perceive a drug addict. That could be a tough one because that's still.
Yeah, I was thinking more murder.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it gets like really subtle and difficult. It's like the moral of the story is that there's the being like for me, for example, there's the me that I perceive in my mind, right? I feel like I'm so-and-so. And then there's the me that you all see, right? And right now there's 5 different me's here. There's the one I perceive and the 4 other ones that you perceive. But we think there's just the one here. And you know, there's just me here. And that you know, just, it's like a subconscious thing, not very strong, that we all believe there's just one being here, you know? And then, but reality is that there's 5 of me here. There's 5 beings in the room. Same as the irritating person. At the time, if someone else could perceive them as pleasant person, that person's neutral. There is no person self-existently. You know, there's the person I perceive, there's the person that you perceive. And there's no being in between those two. So the Dalai Lama, when he looks in the mirror, you know, we might see a Dalai Lama that's getting older, etc., right? You know, he's in his 80s now, you know, who knows how much longer he would live. I mean,
He's that old?
I think he's 83 or something like that, yeah. But we see a being that's getting older, right? And, you know, closer to dying. I mean, hopefully not, but I would like not to see that, but that is the case. But I don't know when he looks in the mirror what he sees, you know. If he's really, he's supposed to be the Buddha, he's supposed to be a Buddha. Avalokiteshvara, can't say that word, Avalokiteshvara. That's who he's supposed to be, as like an emanation of a Buddha. So according to Buddhism, when he looks in the mirror, he sees an enlightened being that's not dying, it's immortal. You know, we see, but we're forced by our karma to perceive somebody that's getting old and dying. And there's no Dalai Lama
He
separate.
says his body, he knows his body.
Yes. But I don't know the body that he sees when he looks in the mirror.
Right.
I know the body that I'm perceiving.
Well,
Right.
yeah, that's the same. It's the same way as like, you know, I don't know, your spouse or something. You think you need to lose 10 pounds, and they tell you
Yeah.
you think that you look
Yeah, right.
fantastic, and you're like, I wish I could see what you see.
Right, right. So that's a
see
little
something
mini
different.
emptiness. Yeah. But ultimately, there's no being separate from the two perceptions. It's contingent upon perception. That's what this is all about. And I don't even know why I started talking about that. The drug addict. Yeah, the drug addict, you know, might see themselves as, I mean, I'm perceiving a drug addict in my world, that's coming from a negative karma in the past of harming other people. Because to me, a drug addict is someone that's abusing their body and harming their body. It's not a pleasant thing, you know. So in order to see a drug addict, I think it implies that there's a negative karma involved, right? Right?
Yeah, I'm abusing my body.
Right, like, I mean, because that's not a good,
Taking care of myself.
it's not a good thing. So if I'm perceiving a drug addict, it's coming from a karma that I have done by, like, you know, probably it comes from, for me, seeing drug addicts in the world, it's not a hard thing to wrap my head around because I'm addicted to sugar to some extent, you know. It's really hard, you know, like I love cake, I love chocolate, and I know, you know, like I eat too much. I mean, I'm not like terrible, but like I know it's hard, it's a struggle for me. So somewhat I know that every piece of sugar in my mouth is not benefiting my body, you know. Added sugar is not good for the body. You know? So, but I eat it anyway because it's good, and it's more about like the actual eating it, you know, and because it's enjoyable. But I know it's harming my body, you know.
The Dalai Lama goes into places and situations where he'll see like poverty or
See, we see a Dalai Lama is going into situations that sees that thing. I don't know what he sees. If he is who, yeah, right. I mean, if he is who if he is who he should be, and that's an enlightened being, someone that's already perfected these things, he's an emanation of Buddha, then he sees a perfect, you know, world around him already. And he's just going through a play, I would say, for us. A play. Like, it's just like he's acting, you know. He's getting older, it's just an act. He's already perfected his own mind, his own body. And it's just everything he's doing is just to show us where we need to clean our own act up.
Just
He's in a
role
impoverished
model of
Kind of.
possibly that this is not impossible. It is a real possibility to reach this, but these are the things you must do.
Well, the thing is, if we're perceiving him in a certain way, if we're perceiving him getting older, if we're perceiving him, I think he had like an operation where he had like a liver problem or something recently or a few years ago. But we're perceiving that, you know. It's hard, you know, but it's that there is no Dalai Lama separate from my perception of the Dalai Lama and your perception of the Dalai Lama. I don't know how the Dalai Lama sees himself, you know. It could be, I mean, and again, it should be that he sees himself as already perfectly enlightened, a body made of light, and that the body that he's showing us is just in order to us to show us where our karma is. If I see a being that's, you know, is getting sick and getting old, that's coming from seeds in my mind. And if I want to stop seeing that, I need to change my own seeds. But there is no Dalai Lama separate from that my perception of Dalai Lama, and your perception of Dalai Lama, and her perception, right? So it's kind of in mind. Yeah, right. But it's the same as the irritating person. If somebody else can perceive the irritating person as a pleasant person, then that means that person is blank. They're neither a kind person or a pain in the ass from their own side. If I'm perceiving them as a pain in the ass, that's coming from seeds in my mind. If I'm perceiving them, because a lot of people see the Dalai Lama as a problem, like the Chinese, right? They don't like, the Chinese kicked him out of their, you know, his own country, and they find him as like they would like Buddhism to be done. They kidnapped the next Dalai Lama, so to speak. They kidnapped the kid when he was a kid, so that the lineage of the Buddhism would stop. And they held him captive, and he's still in captivity. They haven't seen him since like 8 years old or something like that.
Yeah, it's a-
So to them, he's an enemy. You know, to the Buddhist community, he's a Buddha. You know, to really devoted beings with really good seeds in their mind, they might look at the Dalai Lama and see like an enlightened being. You know, for me, I'm somewhere in between. I see him as a normal person, but I can't understand that he's probably already perfected himself. You know, if I can understand these teachings, and he's known these since he's been trained since he was a child. You know, like he's got to be way further along than I am. You know?
But this is like all he knows. So he
Right,
started out
right.
like way ahead of
Right,
the
he's
curve.
way ahead of the curve. So at least he's way,
He's got an unfair advantage.
yeah, he's way further along than me at least. You know, you know, and I can wrap my head around a lot of these things and realize the potential. So at most, he's an enlightened being. That's what he said, to be an enlightened being. You know, just in this world to teach us. You know, to help guide the world, so to speak.
Chinese devil.
But the Chinese don't like it. They kicked him out of his country. You know,
Is there a particular reason why?
I don't know why. Yeah, it's okay. Sorry. I mean, I know it's after.
No, we're trying.
Yeah, no.
Just saw the time.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know why. I don't know exactly why. It's I don't know the reason behind the Chinese, but I think it was like 1954 they went in and pillaged like all Tibet and took it over and killed like thousands of monks and burned all the monasteries and a lot of these teachings. The only reason we have a lot of these teachings is because certain monks carried them out carried them out of the monastery on foot over the Himalayan mountains for like weeks upon weeks, suffering and trying to get to India to be free, to avoid being killed. So we're lucky to have a lot of these teachings, but a lot of them, a lot of the Buddhist teachings were lost in that time. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Not in transit, but they burn monasteries and the teachings and stuff. Yeah, they try to destroy it, wipe it off, wipe it out.
That's really
Well, I guess because she's teaching you to think.
Yeah.
What are people thinking? They
Thanks,
want
Mark.
All right, see ya.
Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
thank you.
They want them to be robots.
Yeah. And what's cool, my teacher started back in 1985, I think. He started a whole thing where they're taking these ancient books, the ones that have survived, and they're putting them into a database, like making them digital. So I think they just finished 10,000 texts. Geshe Michael? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he took them all and put them.
Geshe Michael Roche.
Yeah.
He's been translating them and digitizing them and the whole nine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he
He's
started,
doing a lot of
when he finished studying with his teacher in the monastery, his teacher said for your test, your final test, to go to New York and start a business.
He
and
said
make-
he fought for about 6 months.
And
You're supposed to fight with your Dalai Lama. He said he
Yeah, he said go make a business and make $1 million in 1 year, and he did it and made $5 million in 1 year, and it was the fastest growing company in New York's history.
With the digitizing of.
No.
No,
So
diamonds.
Diamond Company, but then he went and took that money that he made and put it into saving all these books from ancient Tibet and India and stuff, which is really cool.
Who was this, the diamond story?
This is Geshe Michael Roche. He's one of my teachers. Yeah. So
I've
he
been listening to a lot of his stuff.
yeah, there's countless hours. That's where all these teachings come from, ultimately. Lama Marut he did the Dharma Essentials. That was his student. Lama
When he
Marut.
started a diamond business, he went and he worked in it. He said he started a store with 3 people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, knew nothing
gradually
about business and just knew emptiness. Basically, knew emptiness, and that's what his teacher said. Go.
That's where I'm trying to get at.
Well, it's possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a
Stepping
business.
outside of your emotions. You
Yeah.
step outside of your emotion and you look at the logic and you look at, that being empty, and it's not a personal thing. It is where you giving out, that's where you get back.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you say you have a business.
My husband and
Yeah.
I, yeah.
I'll give you a book to buy because he wrote a book about how to start a business and use these principles
Really?
in modern life to make a business successful. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that,
Yeah, we have just
I think I
real
have,
estate.
that's one of the books.
Diamond cover.
Yeah, I just bought that book.
Huh?
Send
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
I mean, that has to be applicable.
Yeah, I just bought it, I haven't read it yet.
No, but again, all these teachings are, come from, he was passed down. His teacher was the teacher of the Dalai Lama, or his teacher's teacher was the teacher of the Dalai Lama. So these are
Yeah.
but he was born in Arizona, so he knows our culture. So he speaks English, and yeah. So that's what's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me go to Sedona.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm going.
There's
I'm going to be going in
February?
October. Anybody wants to join?
I kind of want to.
Arizona.
Oh, he has a retreat coming
Yeah,
up, doesn't he?
yeah.
It's gonna be online, I think.
Yeah, it'll be online too.
How many, is it like a long one?
It'll be from, it's the 13th to the 23rd, so it's about 9 days, I think. It's a Friday, I think, to a Saturday.
Does he have another in February? Did you say?
February,
Yeah.
probably, yeah, he does like 4 a year.
Are you going to the February one?
Now I usually do the October ones now, I would like to, but he usually skips, it's usually, he'll do the one in October in Arizona, he's doing one right now in Mexico, and then there'll be one in, I think, February, I think it'll be in Thailand, actually. He's going to Thailand.
That would be. That's two bucket list things.